We've reconnected. Hopefully, we've got all the platforms that are back up and rolling on Twitter and YouTube and the Puck Sports mobile app. Again, my apologies. The technical problems just have been a little much this week, especially streaming live on the show. So apologies. I'm sure the Mike Garafolo interview, for at least those watching on Twitter, cut out probably, I don't know, 20 minutes in, halfway in. Again, that's all up. We'll all be podcasted up on YouTube, there on the YouTube channel, Puck Sports, and then also on Apple and Spotify and pucksports.com. So, again, apologies for that. We are back up and running. Andy Bunker is going to be joining us top of the hour to talk Falcons and to talk the Seattle Seahawks, which are going to have, as we wrapped up there with Garafolo, which is going to have great, just, Northwest connections, right? You've got Michael Penix and Ryan Grubb. You've got the Jimmy Lake connection and all of that. So, again, we're back streaming there on Twitter. And for those that were on YouTube, apologies on that one. We had to just reconnect there. And then the Puck Sports mobile app. I promise we'll get this figured out. And again, top of the hour, Andy Bunker from 92.9 The Game in Atlanta will join us. We'll talk about the preview of the Falcons and Seahawks coming up on Sunday. A reminder, bottom of the hour, we're going to have Hey, What the Puck, which is brought to you by Restoration One. Hey, real quickly in the headlines, we were running down. We talked earlier in the show before Garafolo joined us. We talked about the Jamal Adams release. No, he's not coming back. All right. I'm just being a smart ass. All right. I like to be a smart ass with it. One, because I just want to see how people get so upset about it. We also touched in on the Seahawks offensive line issues. We had talked about how PFF, in terms of pressure rate, has rated them just terribly. And they have been terrible. And it's just amazing just how poor they really have been. I knew they were poor. I was stunned looking at some of their numbers today, just how poor they actually have been. I want to touch in on the Dan Lanning thing right before we get Andy Bunker to jump on. But also one thing that I'd mentioned at the start of the show that we're doing, big thanks to Reggie Frederick and Chalet Bull, was we're continuing talking to Ryan Divish of the Seattle Times beat reporter, covers the Mariners. You guys all know that. We are talking to him throughout the offseason, and each week we're picking a different storyline to cover there with Ryan. And yesterday when he joined us, we talked about Cal Raleigh, the future of Cal Raleigh. And the whole show yesterday was about Cal, and can they bring him back? Can they afford to bring him back? What is it going to cost?
But you could argue he was the most productive player this year.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, most valuable, most productive, he might not be the most talented, though we're talking about a guy leading baseball in runners thrown out in consecutive seasons, a guy that's hit 28 or more home runs in the last 3 seasons and has delivered most of your clutch hits. I don't know if you can measure anything more valuable than that. Cal is this committed to winning every day that he's beat to hell. He's going in every day at noon for a 7:00 game so he can get cold treatment, the cold bath, the hot bath, all these things to get his body ready to play that night. I think it's a fair expectation to ask the team and the ownership group to have the similar commitment to winning.
Which is true. And I also just noticed that apparently I'm sponsored by the Tacoma Rainiers. I just love the Rainiers hat. They have the best hats and the best logo in the business. He's right about Cal. In case you missed it, we go 30, 35 minutes yesterday just talking about Cal Raleigh. How much he's meant to the team, how valuable he is to the team. What is it going to cost to retain him? Does he want to be here? The more and more this drags on with Cal Raleigh of him not signing an extension. In fact, as Divish said in the show yesterday, there's been no talk of an extension. According to him, that he hasn't heard anything. How much does that raise a red flag with ownership and the front office? That they haven't even approached him yet? according to Divish, at least hasn't heard anything. There's been no rumblings. There's been no whispers about them approaching him about an extension. Again, maybe they have, and maybe those conversations, have just been directly with Dipoto, and his agent Scott Boras. But for the fact that hasn't leaked at all, if they did, normally that stuff would leak. That's concerning. And I wonder for a guy, and we talked about it yesterday, I wonder for a guy who has shown that he will speak out and he will say what's on his mind, about the organization and about the direction of the organization. I wonder, does that make ownership feel hesitant to give him big money? Hey, if we give you 120 million, 140 million over 9-10 years, can we trust you? I mean, there's nothing that he has ever said that's out of line, by the way. Nothing. Nothing that he has said is out of line. And we know that as fans, but ownership doesn't. See, that they don't like that, and they've never liked that. Jeff Nelson years ago, I mean, I'll bring Jeff Nelson back on, and he can tell the story. Years ago when Jeff Nelson was traded, when he spoke out about the organization not doing enough, they traded him. I don't need that. We don't need that type of that. We don't need that at all. I mean, was it last year or 2 years ago? I honestly can't remember now. Someone's got to help me out in the chat. I can't remember. Remember when Cal, said, called out the ownership and just called out the front office, and then he had to have a talking to and had to apologize, and services kind of ripping him in public. I mean, what the heck? You don't do that. There was nothing that he said that was out of line. So I think maybe there's something to that as well, that maybe ownership doesn't want to pay him. And then, I think the desire of where does Cal Raleigh want to finish his career? He's an East Coast guy. Ryan said he loves it out here. He's got a second home in Arizona. He loves it there as well. His family's back in Carolina. He's had a strong desire. He grew up loving the Red Sox. His dad loves the Red Sox, and he loved Jason Varitek. So I think the pull of maybe playing there eventually will get Cal Raleigh. And I think as this goes on longer, I just think that the likelihood he stays in Seattle is probably slim to none, which is unfortunate, because I agree with what Ryan said yesterday. And I go back and watch it. It was just a real good 35 minutes on one thing, and Cal Raleigh, he's the best catcher this organization's ever had. And that's no disrespect to Dan Wilson, and maybe Dan Wilson would even say that he is, but he is. He's the best catcher they've ever had. And he works so well with these young pitchers. He just does such a great job. He's just everything you want there in a team leader. Before Andy Bunker jumps on to give us the opponent preview, Falcons and Seahawks coming up on Sunday. Though I want to revisit the Dan Lanning thing here real quick, because we talked about Dan Lanning on Tuesday with Canzano, and then they, with less, was it 24 hours later, on Monday, where he basically admits, hey, I had 12 men on the field on purpose. And he had that sheepish little grin on his face of where he wanted to kind of let everybody know just how smart he was, that he outsmarted Ryan Day, that he knew the rules, and he took advantage of this little loophole in the 12 men on the field, and the time runs off. You get the penalty, but you don't get the time back. And then the NCAA, within 24, 48 hours, changes the rule. No, it's done. It's changed it. Now the teams can elect to put the time back on the clock. You can call it the Lanning rule. And I had said on Monday or whenever, when they started talking about changing the rule, like, if you're Dan Lanning, why would you even admit to it? Like, it's just so stupid. Don't admit to it. Somebody ask you, hey, did you do that on purpose? No, we didn't do it on purpose. And, obviously at the end of the day, I mean, this is what you do in the Puckett crisis firm. Obviously, at the end of the day, it benefited us, but that was a brain fart on our end. And, we got saved. Unfortunately, it didn't hurt us, but no, we didn't do that on purpose to run time off the clock. We had miscommunication. It's an important down. We're trying to get the right personnel out there. And, we unfortunately had too many guys on the field. And that's on me as a head coach. Can't have that happen. I'm the leader of the football team. That's what you say if you really did do it on purpose. Because there's what are you gaining? Because now this little loophole, it's gone. You can't use it anymore if you were so smart. And Andy Bunker, who will join us, and Andy, of course, is from Seattle, grew up here, and worked on a bunch of radio stations here in town, and then he's moved on. Now he's doing a show in Atlanta, and he's going to join us to preview the Falcons. We are privately, we're just texting back and forth, and he's like, you know what? I don't think he knew. I think he's full of shit. I think that he screwed up. But then when he found out, right then and there, that it helped him, and then after the fact, the next day or into the night and all day Sunday, when he found out that, it benefited them, then he took all the credit. And I'm like, God, you might be right. You might actually be right. So now I'm kind of convinced that was the case. Speaking of Andy Bunker, let's get to our opponent preview. Andy Bunker, of course, does the radio show in Atlanta, Georgia. Andy's at 92.9 The Game. You've joined in portrait. You got to flip your phone around, sir. You're like, there you go. It's okay.
No way. You want me to have it like this?
Yeah, let's go like that. Oh, you got the Sonic sweatshirt on. Good for you.
Yeah, I thought I'd do that for you.
You look great. Hey, before we get Andy Bunker, 92.9 The Game in Atlanta, Georgia, outstanding radio host there, voted by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution as the #1 talk show radio host this week. Congratulations, Andy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Nothing like the newspaper that no one reads anymore.
You and I were texting back and forth, and before we get into the Falcons. And I think now I believe your theory on Dan Lanning. You think Dan Lanning actually doesn't know the rule, that Dan Lanning screwed up, saw the aftermath of it, and then now is taking credit for being smart, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they accidentally sent the 12th guy onto the field, which happens sometimes in sports or in football. They realized the way people were reacting to it, and then they were like, wait a minute, this is great. Like, if we just say we did it on purpose, we look like geniuses, and we don't have to own the fact that we made a very potentially costly mistake, again, as he often has since he's been the head coach at Oregon. It didn't bite him in the ass, luckily, because Ryan Day is an even worse end of game coach than he is. And now he comes out looking like a genius. It's brilliant. He was one non-pass interference call away from having it happen again, which is what has happened in all of the close games that they've been in. But instead, they called pass interference. They go out of field goal range. Will Howard brain fart, and now he looks like Vince Lombardi. So here we are.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you have convinced me now.
And
I think you've convinced me more than ever.
Cards on the table here. I'll say anything to discredit anything good that happens for Oregon. So I really didn't like that they won that game. It was really going to be fun for them to blow another close one with some of his gambling on going for it on 4th down and going for 2 and all of that kind of stuff. But they got one, so good for them.
All right, and again, Andy also is a proud graduate of the University of Washington who is tagged Jed Fish as Fish Tits. That's his nickname for Jed. And he is one of the very rare and few Husky fans who will at least acknowledge not sold on Jed Fish, where others like to convince themselves they are.
I would like to be. It's too early, man. They're 4-3, and in my opinion, they lost a couple games early that at least they could have won. I won't say should have, because I know that Washington State won the game, so whatever. But they could have beat Rutgers for sure, and they didn't. Now they got stomped out by Iowa. There anything I can say about that? They went to Iowa and got destroyed. So that kind of was what it was. But yeah, I don't know. 4-3 is not very good. So what am I supposed to be doing? Lying to myself like I am about Oregon?
All right, let's get into the Falcons Seahawks coming up on Sunday. 4-2, Atlanta. They opened up the season with an 8-point loss to the Steelers, and then they lost to the Chiefs, which was a good game, and then they've rattled off 3 straight wins since then to get to 4-2. After 6 games, the Atlanta Falcons are what? Who are they?
They look like a pretty good offense. They figured it out, I think, with Kirk Cousins. The game plan that they used against the Steelers week 1, I think in hindsight makes sense because they really wanted to protect him and have an extra tight end in there. And they had him in the shotgun and they ran out of the pistol quite a bit. And I think a lot of that was designed to try to keep TJ Watt neutralized. It didn't work. It didn't work at all. It got Kirk Cousins away from what he does best, which is play action and try to use the run game. And, they also just looked really rusty early because no one played a snap in the preseason. And they've since admitted that's part of what it was, which is really frustrating because all summer we talk about, well, maybe they should play in the preseason with all these new pieces and new offensive coordinator and new quarterback. And everyone tells you you're crazy if you suggest that they play in the preseason. And then a month into the season, they're all like, yeah, we probably should have played in the preseason. But then next year when we bring it up again, we'll be told we're crazy again. So that's a fun process. But they've played better the last couple of weeks, 36 2 weeks ago in overtime against Tampa and a nice win. And then, I mean, they beat up on the Panthers, which a lot of people are going to do last week. It scored 38. But the offense looks good. The defense is interesting because they've got some pieces. They got 2 really good safeties. And they've, Grady Jarrett is a solid defensive lineman in the interior. And they made a move to go out and trade for Matt Judon in training camp. And it just hasn't made an impact yet. They've got 5 sacks in 6 games. They're the worst pass rush in the NFL. So, you let Geno sit back there, man, with time. It's a bad recipe.
Yeah. What do we think? I mean, offensively, they got a lot of damn weapons, man. It's just everywhere. And just potent. You got Bijan Robinson. You talk about Tyler Algier and the wide receivers. I think for Seattle's perspective, maybe since Detroit, this is going to be the best offense they've ever seen. Yeah,
when they get it going, they're pretty fun to watch, and they do have a lot of weapons. It's weird. It's kind of game to game. Last week, they had a really good run game going. They went for 200 yards on the ground against the Panthers. And Bijan and Algier each had about 100. Algier actually had more carries than Bijan Robinson did. He was just more effective, and they kind of fed him. 2 weeks ago against Tampa, they could throw it. They passed for 500 yards. And I think between Pitts, London, and Darnell Mooney, who they signed from Chicago in the offseason, they had 30 receptions between the 3 of them. So that was going 2 weeks ago. They haven't had a game where they've gotten both things going and had great balance yet. So, obviously that's something that they'll be trying to do on Sunday. But, yeah, no shortage of weapons. It just you never know who's going to do what. Because there was a game 3 weeks ago where Kyle Pitts didn't have a catch, which is crazy. Guy was the 4th overall pick. Didn't have a catch. So he's been better the last couple of weeks, but that's something people here are watching very closely.
What's wrong with the defense? Obviously a familiar name with Jimmy Lake running it, but what is the biggest issue?
It's personnel. It's, they've got pretty decent linebackers, and I think those guys do a good job. Like we talked about, the safeties are good, and there's some guys on the D-line that are solid, but they just don't have good pass rushers. Like they've drafted poorly at the position. They haven't really signed many free agents over the years to address it. The guy they drafted actually this year was Braylon Trice out of Washington. He got hurt. So he would be helping if he was on the team. But when you go back the last handful of years, they got a guy named Arnold Ebiketie out of Penn State in the second round a couple of years ago. Hasn't really done anything. Lorenzo Carter is a guy that they signed, a Georgia Bulldog. Hasn't really done much since he's been here. And it's just they just don't have that guy. And Judon's good, but with kind of nothing else going on the other side, teams can kind of key in on him. So it's been a long time. Like the Falcons have had a bad pass rush every year since I've covered the team. I've almost been here for 10 years. They had the 1 year where they went to Super Bowl and Vic Beasley had 15 sacks, but that clearly was an aberration. And since then, I mean, they've been the worst team in the league getting to the quarterback almost every year.
Hey, Andy, how was Kirk Cousins kind of, welcomed himself into town? I mean, I think that there was, he was a highly priced free agent. He comes in, he's been a real productive quarterback, obviously, in this league. And then comes, draft night, and the surprise, they draft Michael Penix, who is, just a complete opposite quarterback of Kirk Cousins. Here's a guy that has maybe one of the more beautiful arms that you can see in college and the NFL. He can flick it 60, 70 yards with ease. And I would assume that a lot of fans were probably excited about him to see him, potentially come in. And then you're like, Kirk Cousins is like, hey man, what I just signed here. Why are you drafting a guy? Why are you drafting my replacement? But how has Cousins handled all of that, which can be a major distraction for him?
I think he's handled it great. I mean, that's the one of the things about him in his career is, even though he's been in the league for a really long time, made a ton of money, he's kind of always had that somebody's going to take my job situation, right? Like, and he's at Michigan State, and they bring in Nick Foles. He didn't get drafted to be the quarterback in Washington. RG3 gets hurt, and they never really bought into him. I mean, they franchised him but never signed him. And then he goes to Minnesota, and they told him this last offseason, like, hey, we'd love to have you back, but we're going to draft a quarterback. So he leaves. And then the exact same thing happens to him here. He didn't know that was going to happen. They called him, I guess, like when they were on the clock. We're like, hey, we're thinking about taking Penix. He's like, well, damn. All right. That's kind of part of the reason why I left Minnesota, because they're trying to draft my replacement. So that part of it was pretty weird. It was pretty clunky. Those things don't have anything to do with each other, though. Like, in reality, like, if you can analyze Kirk Cousins and what you think of him as a quarterback, it kind of got muddied by drafting Michael Penix. The same thing with Michael Penix. Like, you can be excited that he's here, but it's unfortunate because you're not going to get to watch him play for a couple of years. As for ingratiating himself, he's played good. So he's played good for the last couple of weeks, so now people are happy. When he's dancing with the crowd and doing the swag surf and like quoting rappers in the in his press conferences, that stuff goes over a lot better when he's throwing for 500 yards. So, I mean, no one really cares about anything other than if he plays good, and he's been playing pretty good for a couple of weeks. So now people are, calling him Kirko Chains and all that kind of stuff. Week 1, when he threw zero, when he looked terrible and people were worried about whether or not he was still hurt, no one said anything nice about him. So, yeah, I mean, he's played good, and so it's fine.
Well, he's just an interesting character, right? I mean, he's like a minivan dad.
Yeah. No, he's he's a dork. There's no way to put it. Like, as a dorky dad, I can relate. He's not cool particularly, but he's comfortable in his own skin, and his teammates love him. Like, that's the thing about it that's kind of fun, is like, you don't have to be anything other than genuine and good at your job in that business, and people are going to like you. So, but you're right. I mean, it's the least Atlanta quarterback that you could possibly have.
Well, that's why I think it's fascinating. And again, I'm not bringing race into this as this is some negative thing. I just think it's interesting that you have Kirk Cousins, who is this nerdy white guy driving a minivan, who doesn't have a big arm, and then here comes Michael Penix, young black kid with just an arm. And it's indoors, you look at the Atlanta fan base, you look at people that live in Atlanta, it's much more black than it would be white. And so you could see like a natural pull for fans there to want to support like the young black quarterback, right? Over the nerdy wearing glasses, driving a minivan quarterback. And I was fascinated how Cousins would deal with that, because that could go either way, right?
Yeah. Again, all that matters is if he plays good. If he plays good, none of that stuff comes into play. If he doesn't play well, then of course people are going to be calling for the backup. But what they did is this amazing, like, they condensed the last 20 years of sports radio debate in this city into one off season, where Michael Vick obviously was this supernova star celebrity, transcended the sport in this city at that time, looking the way that he looked in like TI music videos, playing how he played, was just such a, I wasn't obviously here then, but people talk about it as this, like, I mean, it's a once in a lifetime moment as a sports fan that they had. And then it ends the way that it ends, obviously. Matt Ryan is here almost immediately after that. Very different type of guy, different looking guy, different style of play, put into a really difficult situation to succeed in because of who he was coming in after and all of that in the city. And Matt Ryan's going to Hall of Fame probably.
Yeah.
So he handled it perfectly. But you could have, I mean, you could still right now, if you wanted to, like if it was a slow day in the summer, you could open up the phones and say, if you're starting the franchise right now, who would you rather have, prime Matt Ryan or prime Mike Vick, and have calls for 5 hours. So what they did in one offseason was sign the next closest guy to Matt Ryan in Kirk Cousins.
Sure.
Draft a black left-handed guy named Michael, like, and put him in the same locker room. And when they did it, I was like, they just made our lives so easy for the next 5 years. Because if they nail it and they're right, and Kirk Cousins plays good until he needs to retire, and then Penix takes over and they have the heir apparent, great. Like if it works out the way that it worked in Green Bay for all these years, awesome. Perfect. That's what everybody wants. But if it doesn't, it's the most baked in sports radio debate, whatever thing of all time. So thank you to the Falcons for the ratings bonuses.
Has Penix done many interviews or press conferences or anything? I mean, normally you don't hear from the backup quarterback, but I'm just curious how he's handled all this.
He's handled it great. I mean, again, like that's the nice thing about all these guys too. Cousins, like we talked about, Penix, like they've been very professional about all of it. And I think everyone kind of gets the deal, which has been great. It's funny that you asked that because today, I just got off the air. And every day we do Falcons stuff and use Falcons audio from the previous day. Today was the first day of the whole season where there's been a Michael Penix like audio clip on my cut sheet. And I was like, oh, what Penix was available yesterday? Like what's he talking? And it was just like what he's learning from Kirk Cousins. So it wasn't anything particularly interesting or useful, but today was the first day I actually saw an audio bite from Michael Penix all season.
And I think it's also interesting, just like how is he helping the Falcons prepare for the game on Sunday? I mean, he's gonna know Ryan Grubb's offense better than anyone on that staff. Yeah, we talked about that a little bit today too. We had Jimmy Lake on today and talked to him about what's going on with the defense and all of that. But he brought that up. He was like, yeah, Penix played for Grubb in Washington. And I was like, yeah, I know that. I know all that. I know. Does he not know that you are a Husky fan?
Nah, I didn't bring it up. I mean, what am I going to say to Jimmy Lake about his time at Washington? Like there's nothing.
You had a perfect instinct to ask him, hey man, if you don't hit that kid, you're not the defensive coordinator for the Falcons right now. You know what else doesn't happen? Kalen DeBoer is not the head coach of Washington, nor do you play in the national championship game a year ago. That slap that got him fired, which was ridiculous, changed the course of your alma mater, my friend.
It changed the I did get into that. I didn't get into it with him. I wasn't going to say, hey, like, had you not slapped that kid, then the Huskies wouldn't have made the national championship.
Do you think about that at night, Jimmy?
I more wanted to ask him what the hell happened against Montana, but I didn't bring that up. But I did talk about it. I was like, people probably don't know or care about this, but whatever, I'm gonna do it. I was like, this is football chaos theory 101. Like, Jimmy Lake does that. Kalen DeBoer takes over, brings Penix with him. Ryan Grubb's the guy. Now Penix and Grubb and Lake are all going to be there in the building on Sunday here in Atlanta. Meanwhile, Kalen DeBoer is coaching at Alabama and has a huge game against Tennessee, and Sark's at Texas playing Georgia. So it all comes back to Washington, really.
It just really does all come back to your school.
It really does.
Yeah. Well, you look great. You got the Sonic shirt on. You got Falcons blood now running through you. Thanks for doing this. Is 2 weeks in a row we've had you on. Oh, well, before you go, because we had you on last week about the relief effort, raising money for Hurricane Helene and the relief effort in the Carolinas where your wife is from, and her county was just devastated. I saw that you eclipsed 10,000. I think you've eclipsed, what are you up to, 12,000 now?
Yeah, about $12,500. We're going to keep the, I don't know, I'll probably keep the link open. People want to keep giving money. That's great. We're going to keep talking about it on the air through the Falcons and Seahawks game on Sunday. But yeah, we got over the goal and kept rolling. Had a huge donation yesterday from one listener, which is
awesome.
And yeah, thanks to everybody who listens to your show and watches your show for all the donations that people gave out last week too. It's really, really cool to see, how many different communities and relationships and stuff that I've been able to develop that led to helping back to that one as well. I did want to say one thing, because you have your Rainiers hat on.
I know, it's 2 days in a row I've gone Tacoma Rainiers.
And I have a Tacoma Rainiers hat as well that I wear because I got to take my kids to school really early in the morning. I come back home and get ready and stuff. So I just throw on my Rainiers hat and take them. I wish I would have worn it because I have the other one though. I have the blue one with the red R. But I have it. I bought it right before my son was born. My son is like 1.5 now, but right before he was born, I bought it because his middle name, you may not know this, is Rainier.
Well, how about that? I did not know that. That's a hell of a middle name.
Jack Rainier Bunker. Yeah, we had to have homage to the home state.
God, I love that. You know what? The Rainier, it's the best logo in sports. It's the best gear in sports. It's the best. Absolutely the best.
I can't wait. We'll wait about 20 years to do this. But someday, like drink a Rainier with Jack Rainier, that's going to be pretty good.
Oh, yes, sir. Well, we can start earlier than that. 15.
He might, but if he's like me, he'll probably start with Milwaukee's Best in his friend's garage or something like that. But also, you can call it, it's a built-in drink. You get a shot of Jack and a Rainier tall boy. It's a Jack Rainier.
Oh, I can't believe you did that on purpose. Unbelievable.
The most alcoholic thing you could do is just name your son after the drink you want to drink.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, enjoy it on Sunday. Thanks for doing it as always. Just keep up all the great work, bud. Thanks for doing it again.
Thanks for having me. Anytime.
You got it. There he is, Andy Bunker, 92.9, the game in Atlanta. As we talk all things opponent preview there with Andy, the Falcons and the Seahawks coming up there on Sunday. And again, it's we said this earlier in the show, but it is going to be an absolute shootout. This is not going to be a defensive game at all. This is going to be a game in which, I don't know, it'd be the 40s. It's who has the ball last. Both offenses should be able to move the ball. Atlanta's defense is not great. They don't get after the quarterback. Maybe this is good news for an offensive line that has certainly struggled in protecting. And this would be probably a moment where the offense has, it's fluttered a little bit, right? It's been up and down, hasn't been consistent. It's had its moments, and then it's looked terrible. Maybe this is a nice breakout game, again for Ryan Grubb in this offense, and a lot of accountability being talked about here in the last few days from their offense, from Geno, from DK Metcalf, and all those guys. So this will be a good bounce back offensively. Defensively, I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna be able to do. This is as talented as an offense that they have seen. Maybe you could even make an argument this is more talented than Detroit. They've got 2 running backs like Detroit did. Robinson can damage you out of the backfield. Mooney's a threat. London's a stud. Kyle Pitts, sometimes you overrate him, but he's a playmaker. Ray McLeod is a baller as well. And then Cousins is just efficient, gets the ball out on time, makes the right decisions. Just does. Just a pro. Not flashy, but a pro. And, the fact is the Seahawks are banged up in the secondary. Jenkins being out, they had to sign, a kid off the practice squad. You've got Trey Brown banged up. You've got Reek Woolen banged up. Yeah, it's going to be a shootout. They're not going to win it defensively. Now, having said all that, you know what's going to happen? The defense is going to play great, and they're going to win a defensive game. That's what's going to happen. All right, before we wrap it up here on the Daily Puck Drop, it's all brought to you by, we do the Hey What the Puck, which is all brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle, your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. It's locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. This has nothing to do with sports, even though he did this for a sporting event. Actually, it does have something to do with sports because you see this guy a lot because teams bring him in to like training camp or whatever, just baseball teams, a lot of sports teams bring him in. It's the Oz the Mentalist guy. Do you guys, everyone know who that is? This like mentalist, magician guy that teams bring in, and he pulls off this shit like, hey, I know what you're thinking. No, you don't. What number are you thinking of? Well, I'm thinking of 4. You're thinking of 4. And you're like, I don't know how I don't know how he does this. And obviously it's not like, he's not reading people's minds, but I want to know how he does it. So this clip I want to play is leading up to the Ryder Cup. It was a preview of the Ryder Cup with Keegan Bradley and Luke Donald, who were the captains of the Ryder Cup team. And so he got them together. And he does something, and again, I just want to know how he does this. How does he pull off this trick? Because I don't get it. And I want someone in our chat to explain to me how
Keegan,
he does this.
Do me a favor, hold out your hands. Bring your right hand on top of your left hand slow and cup it. I want you to imagine that you suddenly travel to any golf course in the world. Can you see yourself there right now?
Yes.
All right. And I see it in your mind. I told you, you know when your hands are empty. You can literally feel it. But picture yourself where you feel the weight of a golf ball. You feel all of those little dimples in the golf ball, and you're going to almost feel this happen. Tell us, what course did you pick? What are you imagining? Say it. Which is that course?
Pebble Beach.
Pebble Beach. And right now, you feel the weight. You can feel it start happening. You're not going to believe this. Slow, slow. Look what's inside your hand now. Open it up, and show them. Turn that ball around. Look at the other side. Where is that?
Wow. Wow. Yes.
Okay. Tell me how he did it. How is Keegan Bradley in on it? Because if you go back and watch the beginning, you'll see the camera kind of go away from Keegan Bradley. Is Bradley in on it? So here we go. Okay. Okay, so he covers it. So are you telling me like right there is now like the ball being put into Keegan Bradley's hand? Is that the trick? So Bradley's in on it. I mean, look at all these other people. They're all standing around. If he was in on the trick, they would see Keegan Bradley be handed a ball. Would they not? Wouldn't they be saying, well, that's not, I mean, you handed him the ball. So where does the ball come in? When does this son of a bitch put the ball in his hand? Without Keegan Bradley knowing he's putting the ball in. For those listening, go back and watch it on the podcast. How does this guy do it?
You feel all of those little dimples in the golf ball.
He's got his hands closed.
Tell us what course.
Okay, he puts his hands on.
Say it. Which is that course?
Are you saying he does it right then?
And right now, you feel the weight. You can feel it start happening.
How does he do it?
You're not going to believe this. Slow. Look what's inside your hand now. Open it up, and show them. Turn that ball around. Look at the other side. Where is that?
Yeah, Pebble Beach. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't know how he does it. I want someone to tell me and tell me, give me a theory on how he does it. I watch this guy all the time and the stuff he does, and it blows me away. I want to know the method to this guy's black voodoo magic what he's doing because this isn't normal. It's not normal what he's able to do. But I need theories. I need people that are smarter than me because I'm an idiot. All right, that's it. That's a fun one. That's a Hey, What the Puck, all brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle. Your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com. North Seattle franchise. Again, apologies for the connections earlier. And I know probably the YouTube stream still had the same issues that it's been having the last couple of days with the audio. Again, we're fixing it. It will be fixed hopefully soon, and we'll get it rectified. But those who stuck around on that stream, also on the Puck Sports mobile app, thank you. Also there on Twitter, we appreciate you all watching. Thank you so much. Even when we dropped, you came back. And again, all this today's show, the Daily Puck Drop, will be up on YouTube, and then we'll of course have the individual interviews there with Mike Garofolo and Andy Bunker on our opponent preview up there as well. For the video on the audio stream, Apple, Spotify, any podcast platform that you like to use, it will be available up there as well. And of course at pucksports.com, where we put all of our shows every single day. And again, other content up there right now. The Old Crimson Cougars podcast is up. Also, Cougs Corner, my conversation with Kyle Williams. Fantastic. Love Kyle Williams. Outstanding wide receiver there for the Cougs. But he was a real fun interview. Coming up tomorrow on the show, it's a Friday. Jim will be back with us. We'll talk to our handicapper Troy Wins tomorrow. Get the latest picks there on the season, therefore the NFL and college football season as well. And Chris Egan from King 5 will join us as well. Oh, and I should remind everyone that is playing in the Puck to Picker Pick'em pool, that is we haven't talked about it in a few weeks. And again, whoever wins this is going to win a trip for 2 to Las Vegas. Courtesy of TroyWins.com. All you got to do is pick the games against the spread. You can't join that. Well, you could join now, but you wouldn't be eligible because it's based on the amount of points and that people have gotten since week 2 of the NFL season. So you would be behind the 8 ball. But again, get in early next time. But again, get your picks in tonight for Thursday Night Football. Make sure you get all your picks in for the weekend. Right now, Jeff Johnson currently is your leader in the clubhouse with 620 points. Right now, Greg McDonald is there as well. Ryan Johnson, Roberto Alivar, Christian Armitage. I think I'm screwing all these names up. My apologies. They're all in the running right now for the trip for 2 to Las Vegas for first round of the NCAA tournament, courtesy there of TroyWins.com. Everything's covered. Airfare, hotel. You get a dinner there at a steak restaurant in Las Vegas, all courtesy of Troy Wins, TroyWins.com, our Puck the Picker pigskin pool. As for me, I'm currently ranked 64th, 36 and 37 there on the season. 500-ish. That's not bad. It's okay. I'm taking the Saints tonight, by the way, plus the points. That's a stupid pick, but I'm stupid. All right, that's it for the Daily Puck Drop here on a Thursday. And again, a reminder coming up tomorrow, Troy Wins, our handicapper, Jim Moore, and Chris Egan from King 5. We'll talk to you tomorrow. As always, we promise to be better.
No shirt, no shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for? We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!